All right, all right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Poly with us. I'm Amin, the Pod God. I'm here with Heem. What's good? How you feeling?
I'm all right, man. I'm a lot better. We haven't done this in a while, and some of it's my fault, or just life circumstances and stuff. But yeah, I'm doing a lot better now. So thank you.
Definitely, definitely. Some of it was your fault. Some of it was my fault. Some of it just, like you said, life.
Yeah,
You know. Um, but hey, we here now, and there's a lot to talk about. So let's
yeah,
just get
yeah.
right into it. First of all, I want to talk about somebody that I don't like at all. I've been going at this individual for years on end, and that's your boy, your homie, the disgraced governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
So let's stop for a second. Not my homie. Not my guy.
You're not a Cuomo sexual?
I am not a homosexual. I'm not trying to get Cuomo harassed. I'm not trying to get any of that stuff. So nah, not my homie. Nah.
All right. So the reason why I've been going at Cuomo for years on, and to me, he always been a horrible governor.
Hmm.
The when he made sure that progressive agendas didn't get passed through the state of New York,
Hmm.
he actively actively supported politicians that got elected as Democrats to caucus with the Republicans so he wouldn't have to pass certain bills. The fact that marijuana just became legal in New York State. I mean, Cuomo been governor since 2011.
Hmm.
Marijuana just became legal. What was you doing all this time, Cuomo? At the beginning, he was actively against it.
That's right.
He just came around over the last 2 years, and even when he came around to support it, he still missed it last year because we were supposed to legalize it the year before. And I
Hmm.
think the only reason he probably legalized it now was due
Hmm.
to New York getting hit hard with COVID and budget issues. So that's revenue. Como also, and the reason why I'm going on this tangent right now, I'm not even asking questions, but with what kind of irritates me is the media, right?
Okay.
The media have held up Andrew Cuomo not just during COVID, even before that,
Hmm.
as some type of great governor, and he never been. He got all this credit during COVID, and of course, you compare him to Trump. Okay, anybody would look better than
Hmm.
Trump talking. But the media, at least the mainstream media, did not report how he was actively trying to cut Medicaid during the pandemic.
Hmm.
And with all this, the sexual harassment scandal, and I don't want to just overlook that like it's a big deal because it is. Um, it's enough to impeach him. He should resign. Um, but the media is not even talking about the nursing home scandals, which is
Family.
outrageous.
Family, yes.
So I,
Yeah.
I'm going on a ramp, so I could keep going. I'm just going to pass it to
What
you.
did Jay say? Hold on. What did Jay say to Free? Keep going.
Yeah, yeah, keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. That is crazy. Literally, people lost their lives because of decisions
Hmm.
that this man have made. There
Hmm.
was no emergency plans in place, and what he did was fudge the numbers. Now, granted, that report haven't came out from the Attorney General's office yet, but
Hmm.
the media seem like they have no interest in that.
Hmm.
Okay, people losing their lives. It could have been your grandma, could have been your grandfather.
Hmm.
Whatever. Back page story.
Hmm.
Oh, something about sex. Oh yeah, we all over this.
Yep.
So that's my frustration with this whole story. Cuomo been a horrible governor from the beginning. He never
Hmm.
should have been elected as governor from the get go. I mean, I still remember his slightly racist comments during the 2008 presidential campaign when he supported Hillary Clinton, of course, and he said that you can't shuck and jive your way to the presidency.
I forgot about that. He did say that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Wow.
So I mean, just corporate interest galore. I mean, there's really not anything good about him. His personality is not likable to me,
Mm-mm.
but the media loved him. And this goes to the bigger problem of our media not focusing on policy. It's like a reality TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Just quick story. Like my mother was babysitting my daughter today, so I went. So when I came home, my mother just randomly turned on the TV and Jerry Springer was on. I was like, Jerry Springer still come on?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that still existed. I didn't even know Jerry Springer was still a thing, but apparently it is. But why watch that when you got cable news?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is now,
Yeah.
man. Like it is basically the Jerry Springer show, Maury, whatever
Yep.
nonsense reality TV show right now. That's the way they cover it. And like
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of frustrated because we I don't want to say we had a tipping point because if you go throughout history, there always been a tipping point. I don't think this time is no more serious than it was a decade ago. Always serious for individuals, right? But we have very serious problems when it comes to the globe with the climate. Basically progressing faster than anybody had uh, initially anticipated.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing happening with that, and that's going to lead to crop shortages,
Mm-hmm.
water,
Mm-hmm.
food might not be as available as it is now, at least for the people in the U.S. And a lot of people in the U.S. is not used to that, so that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be crazy. It's just going to lead to a bunch of global issues. Nobody talking about that. Nobody is talking about police reform anymore. I mean, that's just totally off the radar.
Yep. Yep.
It actually going the other way. There's they talking about voting rights, but unless you get rid of the filibuster,
What are we doing here?
right? I mean, you have a minority in this country that got a tremendous amount of influence. Like people always say that the Constitution is designed so big states can't run over the small states, which is cool. That's why you have the Senate. But why is it the other way around? Like we the majority of the population don't get to pick the president of the United States, which means the majority of population really don't get to pick. Sometimes, in certain cases, cabinet members and who runs the federal government,
Mm-hmm.
who get nominated for the Supreme Court. Um, we even in the House, the way the districts are gerrymandered, and the House is supposed to be on population. It doesn't work out like that
Yep.
either. So there's just a ton of problems going on economically. We're not even talking about foreign policy yet, but
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, just a ton of problems. That's just my rant, and it all relates to. It doesn't all relate to, but it just that's how it correlated to Cuomo. It's just that we not serious right now.
Yeah.
So that's my little rant to start off the show.
Well, came in hot. Bravo.
Yeah.
It's a lot of smoke there, man. Yeah, I echo everything you say, man. Like everything you're saying about Cuomo. It was funny because I think the my original thought originally was that the sex scandal was like a thing that he may have like intentionally let out because he wanted to forget about the nursing home scandal because it came out like a week later. It was like a week later after the nursing home scandal where they pretty much let people die.
Hmm.
A week later, then it was this scandal came out about the sexual harassment, and I'm thinking like, yeah, people because of how messed up we are in our mindset in America, and how we don't really care about like sexual harassment as much as we say we do, and then B, especially when it comes to powerful men like him, and then B, like how we've been trying really hard to move past COVID in so many different ways. So yeah, that nursing home scandal, I was like, yeah, this is like a huge story and y'all aren't even paying attention to it. Even still, like it's still a huge story that people aren't paying attention to. And this man, and all of his hubris, decided to write a book last year about leadership, even though during times like COVID, even though like he actually like really did a bad job with how like they New York kind of finagled the COVID scandal last year. I mean COVID pandemic at the start of last year. Yeah, man, like I have no time for that dude whatsoever. On top of him caucusing with like Republicans, which you eloquated earlier, yeah, I've never had any time for Andrew Cuomo, and I've always kind of looked at him as like an abrasive asshole. And it's crazy too because his dad, Perry Cuomo, like was like, he wasn't like the greatest governor ever, but like he for New York State, like he was a guy that really sided with workers, like really like expanded worker rights and stuff like that. From my understanding of what he did there and stuff, and to have a son that has done the exact opposite. It's like what the hell, man? Like, and that usually is what happens when you have like kids and stuff. We've seen it
Mhm.
with like Pete Buttigieg and Vice President Harris now. Like their parents were like so different from what their kids came out to be and stuff. So, but to the greater point, and this is about that stuff with the nursing home with tapping there, and also with the same time this pandemic's hitting, he's trying to also get rid of Medicare or lessen Medicare and stuff like that in the state of New York. You know, our media isn't equipped to like touch on topics in a serious manner anymore, especially our news media, our corporate news media. You know, think about now with like this with the COVID people, the Delta variant in the United States and this Lambda variant that's coming up through South America now. Um, the reaction is like, hey, let's go ahead. Like, and we talked about this a while ago. The action is like, hey, y'all need to get vaccinated because we don't want more variants popping up. And I'm like, yeah, we don't want more variants popping up. Definitely want to get vaccinated. However, these variants are coming from other countries and they're coming into our country, and we don't and you're not closing up shop and saying no flights coming here and putting a wall up around the country isn't going to stop that. So maybe like let's figure out why isn't more pressure on being put on Pfizer and Moderna, who a lot of their funding for these programs were done through taxpayer dollars. Why is there more pressure put on them to sell this vaccine for cheap around the world? Instead, they're talking about raising the price on the vaccine, and this isn't a discourse in the media at all. No one's talking about this, but this is why this pandemic is going to go probably for I don't know how long now because of these two companies not really taking it serious, and then you go back to like policy and stuff. Um, uh, Somehow Biden's having a successful presidency, even though he declared victory, mission accomplished, like Bush did with the banner after the Iraq War on COVID back in I want to say back in like May or so. We haven't. It's obviously not over now. And it's actually getting worse in a lot of places. Like you said, he promised the George Floyd Policing Act on I think right before Memorial Day or around Memorial Day, something along those lines. Sometime in May, around the anniversary of his murder that hasn't happened, and that's kind of like falling by the wayside now, even in the media discourse. We'll get to it shortly about the infrastructure bill, but like, yeah, all the stuff that's been cut in the infrastructure bill, and they're still kind of like talking about like it's the greatest bill ever, but no one's actually looking into like the scope of the bill and what it's like touching on and so forth. It's just a complete madness right now, and I'm not really sure. We don't have a media that's like equipped to touch on these things seriously because you know their goal has been to infantilize American minds over the last like 40 years, some odd years. So I'm just like yeah, I'm ranting a little bit myself. So I have a lot to say, but this Cuomo stuff, man, like he's definitely going to be going now, but the problem is still there, and I think that's the issue is that we need to like sit down and really figure out the problem and what's causing people to think this way instead of just saying yeah we got him and that's it. That's not going to be that's not the solution here. So yeah.
Right, and that's going to be the main theme of the show is what should our messaging be? And I want to get into this just in a few minutes. The left, I hate our arguments sometimes. I just, it's a lot of smart people on the left,
Hmm.
and sometimes I think they too smart. Like we argue about the most insignificant points sometimes,
Hmm.
and the points that's not going to move the masses. Like it's okay for us to debate amongst each other, but what's really going to get people involved? And I feel like we haven't figured that out. A lot of a lot of the slogans, a lot of the talking points, it's just not going to work in certain communities, and we'll get into that in a second. But before we do that, let's discuss the latest on the infrastructure bill. So it looks like the bipartisan bill will pass in the Senate. And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised.
Mm.
I thought they was gonna have to go through reconciliation for the whole bill. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really surprised that McConnell didn't block this and
Yeah.
let it go forward. That's shocking to me. What you think the strategy for the Republicans is with that?
Why block it when it's, it's not the bet. You kind of got what you wanted in the bill by like water down a lot of the stuff that was asked for originally. On top of that, like why even like fight this? Let's go ahead and like get some people to vote for it, and then we can come back next year and say that, yeah, we got this done. We worked with them on this. You need a bipartisan victory if you're the Republican Party. So why not like do something like this that is actually going to be pretty popular, but also has been uh catered towards a lot of your interests, to come back to your constituents and come back to your state and say like, yeah, we did this. We've shown we can work with the Democrats to do this. That's my thinking, as to why they're doing that. But what about you?
I don't know. It's hard for me to even think of the reason because it seems like working with Democrats is a death pill for a lot of Republican voters and a lot of their base.
Hmm.
So you see Fox News is going crazy over it right now and starting to attack the Republicans that supporting the bill, even though this bill is not really that great,
No,
to
it's
be
not.
honest. But they still kind of going in on it. Usually, even if a policy is popular, if Democrats support it, Republicans just won't support it, um, just off of that alone, especially if
Hmm.
it's a big issue. I go back to the Simpson Bowles Commission where Republicans got about 90% of what they wanted, but because it was Obama, they didn't support it.
Hmm.
The only thing I could think of with that, maybe with the Simpson Bowles, even though it was a horrible deal, the grand bargain, that would have been terrible for the country if it passed. It did touch defense spending a little bit,
Hmm.
so maybe that's why
And this
it
does
was
too.
killed.
Actually, this actually touches a lot of defense spending. Well, it gives a lot of money for defense spending as well. So maybe that's something that you can kind of harp on as well.
Right. In the Simpson Bowles, it actually was going to cut defense spending, not
Right.
by a
Right.
lot, but just
Right.
by a little bit. Maybe that was the reason. I don't know, but I am a little bit surprised.
Yeah,
Now,
this bill gives I think 70 or 80 billion to defense spending. I believe some number like that, which obviously is necessary, but still.
right. Now, as far as the specifics of the bill, it's really not a lot of new spending. It's money
Hmm.
that was already, most of it is money that was already allocated and they just
Hmm.
repurposing it. So it's really not that much new spending.
Hmm.
Um, and everybody talking about the reconciliation bill, which is which is great if it passed the human infrastructure with child care in it,
Yeah.
with universal pre-K. Great, great, great. But to me, it still need to be more of core infrastructure and reconciliation bill as well. Housing is crisis right now going on
Yeah. Yeah.
with housing,
Yep.
and the bipartisan bill it touched on housing a little bit, but not too much. Very little, very
Hmm.
little on housing, and we need more serious policies of what's going on what we're going to do about housing. The price of rent is outrageous. I know there's ideas of rent control, but it depends on how you do rent control
Hmm.
because done the wrong way can actually end up hurting people, but if done correctly it could be a good idea, but we just need more discussions on what we're going to do about housing, how people can't afford rent. So I don't know what's your thoughts on the reconciliation bill, and do you think the reconciliation bill will get passed as is now?
No, I think that's going to be a big fight. I echo you completely on housing. I think that like not just for people not being able to get rent, but also on top of that, people uh, there's no conversation at all on the house crisis that's going on in our country, and we'll get into that a little bit as well. But that's a huge crisis that's going on in our country that a lot of people are suffering through right now. And there's not been any conversation about that. But if you're in any city, USA, you're seeing a lot of that. Um, yeah, man. Like there for some reason in our politics, these big numbers are thrown out and saying like, oh, this is the most money you've ever spent on whatever, whatever. But no one actually like, especially like in our political media, never breaks down what that actually means and where they're actually going to and so forth. Like I would love, I know this sounds like stupid maybe, but I would love every year if the government send us like a check every fiscal year, or not a check, but like a breakdown of what a dollar means and what this is all going to kind of like eloquate, explain to us like what this all like actually means in terms of our spending, because a lot of this money isn't going to a lot of things that are in need. Like we desperately need like better roads. Like I live in DC, and you know, I live near, I don't know if you remember the story a couple weeks ago, but that bridge that collapsed
Yeah, I do remember that story.
yeah, on our on 295.
Hmm.
I live near that, and it's thankfully it was like a walkway.
Hmm.
It wasn't like a car bridge; it was like a walkway. But still, like, and thankfully nobody was injured or killed. But this is
Yeah,
nation's capital. That this happened. And that bridge is old. It's been old for a very long time, and it's like about several of those different overpasses in DC and stuff like that. But there hasn't been much money allocated towards that. You
right.
know, I think that we need to like really have like a uh, uh, we can't be scared of these numbers, man. Like if you can give X amount of dollars to these corporations and to defense money, you can't be scared of saying like, well, we're going to put this money into our roads. And even further, man, like there still isn't any conversation about the public option or healthcare, which Biden promised to campaign on, and he didn't touch. He's completely, it's not even in the conversation anymore. There's so many things, man, that it's kind of frustrating that what I don't get is that at this moment we have we have to go big because the House and the Senate aren't guaranteed next year for the Democrats. That's what they should be thinking, and instead they're going to these petty squabbles and all that stuff. Will it
Yeah,
go good past? I'm not sure, man. Like I think that uh, the moderate senators, the Manchin, Cinemas, Chris Coons, and so
Mark
forth, and it's
Warner's.
Mark
Yeah,
Warner's, yeah. And I mentioned them all of them because, like, I know we focus on Cinema and Mansion because they're taking the bullets, but there's a lot more of them up there than people will say in the media, because again, the media likes seeing the showy stuff instead of like actually investigating. But there are a lot more senators up there that don't like this price tag, and there are progressive senators that are going and progressive House members that are like, no, you need to spend this. Actually, we're not spending enough, and if there's an agreement there, this isn't going to get passed. And I think that actually is going to come to pass. I don't know what
L-
that's going to look like, but I think that we might get to that point.
let me ask you, because the timeline. I know the bill is going to go to the House later on, maybe like in September or so.
hmm
Um, are they? Will the House be able to vote on reconciliation before they vote on the bipartisan bill?
From my understanding, no. I think that I'm not. That's actually a great question. Not that I don't know that for sure. That's a question I
Mm,
can't answer right now. I'm not going to give you like bullshit. I just don't know that from the top of my head. But from my understand, I mean, at least in the Senate, I know. I just know in the Senate they were going to they were going to say we're going to vote for the bipartisan bill first, and the reconciliation is going to be attached to that afterwards. But I can't
r-
answer that question.
because my fear is this, and you're gonna have to do some research. Maybe somebody out here know.
hmm
It's just the timeline. So if I'm a member of the House, I'll be real hesitant to vote for that bipartisan bill
hmm
until I know the Senate for sure is going to vote for the reconciliation bill.
hmm
Because what's stopping Cinema or Manchin or one of the other conservative corporate Democrats from basically lying and reversing
hmm
course once the bipartisan bill is passed if they didn't vote on the reconciliation bill? I mean, I know it wouldn't be good protocol, but I mean, it can happen.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so
And these
I
are
don't trust them.
and these people have real differences. It's not like some back end like stuff. Like these people have like real philosophical differences, and they don't like each other. Like this isn't like a collegial moment where
Mhm.
you come to my boat and we can have a cigar over this. These people aren't in the same worlds. They don't live in the same areas. They don't think the same. They have like a whole like philosophical, ideological, values based difference on how things should be ran. So I don't know. I just have a tough time believing that's going to pass, and that's going to be one of the biggest embarrassments We'll ever see if that doesn't pass.
Well,
Honestly.
what I can see happening, and hopefully the progressives will actually follow through, because I know AOC, Pamela Jayapal, all have
Hmm.
been talking about not voting for the bipartisan bill if the reconciliation bill is not with it. Do you think, and this is another question, depending on how many Democrats will hold out, how many progressives hold out,
Hmm.
would enough Republican House members vote for it, the bipartisan bill, to override that? Because I didn't think they would be able to get like 10 senators for the bipartisan bill. Um, would they be able to get enough Republican House members to override the progressives? I don't know.
On a reconciliation bill, on a
Yeah.
reconciliation.
Well, not on the
Okay,
the
you know
vote.
what?
No,
Boom.
no,
I see what
not
you're saying.
on the reconciliation bill, for the bipartisan bill.
I see what
If
you're
the
saying.
Republicans hold their if the progressives hold their votes, would they be able to get enough Republicans to vote for it in the House to override that?
I see what you're saying. I don't think so, and the reason why I'm saying that is because from what I've been seeing, a lot of people in the Senate and the House, I mean, well, in the Senate, that aren't up for election until 2024 have been like saying we're going to vote for this bill. That's what you're kind of seeing, and the people that
Mm,
are up next year, they're the ones that are like, I'm changing my mind. I don't think this is the right bill, and so forth, because of what you said earlier about having to uh, um, go back to the Republican voters next year and say, hey, vote for me. I'm seeing that is actually kind of coming up a little bit. I know it kind of reverses what I said earlier, but
hmm
I've been seeing people talk about that. And so in the House, where they're very partisan and leadership is very partisan, and however you want to say it, I can see them saying fuck no, and letting it fall, because at the end of the day, there is some stuff that they may want with regards to like I said earlier, wanting some type of win to rent to constituents with, but they don't want to see anything about Biden to the past. They want to see COVID fail. I mean, fail his agenda, and say like he messed up, and this is why you need to bring, or the Democrats messed up, and we need to bring people from our side into these seats now. So I can honestly see them saying no, especially in the House. The Senate is maybe different, but the House I can definitely see that see that getting shot down.
I know the House have more of a rabid base,
Hmm.
so yeah, that could be it. And do you think the progressives will actually follow through on their threat if the reconciliation bill is not added?
They're talking smoke right now. They're talking real spicy. So, uh, I I I think at the end of the day, a couple of them. I think that a couple of them probably will vote for it, but I can also see like a few of them that are talking right now, and if they don't get what they want, or are afraid of what's or afraid of like the Senate Democrats like kind of like stabbing them in the back, I can see them like saying no. This is, like I said before, this is like a real like this isn't this isn't going to be settled on a vote, man. They're not going to be talking about this over wine
Mm,
and champagne. These people are different. They're not in the same like the people
yeah,
that are in the House that are progressives are not anywhere near the same like thinking, same socioeconomic class. None of that stuff that's going on in the Senate,
yeah.
man. This isn't that at all. So I can definitely not see them like
Only need six
tone it up.
progressives. Now, I do agree with them standing up for this bill. I didn't think they should block um, the COVID bill,
Mm-hmm.
just because I thought they would lose the public relations for
Mm-hmm.
that.
I
This
agree.
one, I think they could win the public relations argument on this one. Um, and
And
that,
I think that because of, I'm sorry to cut you off, because Biden
go ahead.
needs a win so badly,
Mhm.
I think he would listen to them. Versus like the COVID bill where he can kind of like beat them up and be kind of bully them a little bit because of the public relations. I think he listens to them on this one.
Yeah, he Biden kind of been getting beaten up lately, and is well deserved and past due.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can't believe people gave him as much of a honeymoon as they gave him. I was wrong with that. I didn't think he would get a honeymoon, but I was proven wrong. He got a major honeymoon. I
Well,
think
Trump.
people, yeah, and I think January 6th helped that too,
That
as
too, yeah.
well. Um, just the ridiculousness of the Republicans, I think, helped with that. But Biden, I it boggles my mind how people like this guy. I mean,
You say it
So,
every time. Yeah.
it's just, and I try to get myself out of my own perspective. Just, I guess he could be relatable to some people, but I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, goodness, policy wise, he's a disaster. He's not clear on his message. I I don't know. There's really nothing about Biden I like, to be honest.
You
But
and me both, man.
that's neither here nor there. So he been getting beat up lately. Cori Bush, her protest seemed to work and was a major catalyst of reversing the eviction moratorium. That's something we've
Mm-hmm.
been talking about for a while as well. Once that
Mm-hmm.
ends, it's going to be a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the media was really on their job, they'll really be on these governors, on each of these states to disperse the money
Yes.
correctly.
Yes.
But I think this is what it is, because most of the people in the media is not only they in a certain class now, but most of them grew up relatively well to do. Not saying they was rich, all of them was rich or anything like that, but most of these reporters you see on TV didn't grow up poor or didn't grow up what we'll call working class.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they don't believe in the policy to begin with. And I get it. And I think this is where the left need to be careful too, because some of us on the left, or I shouldn't say some of us, some people on the left, because there's a real push for socialist policies. And I'm not saying that like Fox News is as a boogeyman, because I understand it, so it's not like that. But because there's real push for socialist policies, it just like F the landlords completely. I don't really care about them, but there is this situation where yes, the landlords still do have to pay mortgage. So, and I'm not talking about like the big property management companies. I don't really so much care about them, but the individuals that own
Yeah.
a house, or like in my area, there's a lot of doubles here, a lot of doubles houses where it's it's like it's like a house downstairs, but upstairs
Mm-hmm.
a whole nother one, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people will live in the upstairs or downstairs and rent out the second half for rent, and that's how they get by as well. So I do understand that to a certain extent, and a lot of those people is not rich, and
Right.
so it's not for me. It's not f the landlords, because the mortgages are still due. We
Mm-hmm.
need to talk about that money being dispersed properly, so they can pay the mortgage, and also making sure that these people credit don't take a hit either.
Yeah.
So, and for me, I know I'm a little bit different because I believe in a mixed economy. I'm not a full socialist. I'm not a full capitalist. I think there's elements of both that can be mixed in depending on what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not as far left as some people there. But and again, that goes back to messaging. And I applaud Cori Bush, and I'm glad it was extended, but it was only extended for another 60 days.
Yeah. It's not a victory at all.
So if we not able to get that money dispersed in these next 60 days, we're gonna be in the same position. So what needs to happen is not just pressure on Biden. It need to be pressure on these governors
Mm-hmm.
on, okay, what's going on? Why is this money taking so long? Whatever the problem is, you need to fix it. That's where I think the next step is. Why y'all holding on to this money? What's taking so long with dispersing it? And I understand. I guess in the bill, there's a lot of loopholes. There's a
There you
lot of
go.
red tape
There
in
you go.
the federal
That's the
bill.
problem. Yeah.
But whatever you have to do to fix that need to be done. Whether you pressure and you need to be pressuring Biden and the states as well with that.
I would, well, and you might know a little bit better about this than I do, but why I wouldn't even necessarily go at Biden. I mean, you definitely want to go to governors of the states and so forth, but why can't Congress rewrite the bill or reshape the bill? because that's the problem. The bill's super convoluted, and it's hard for, and it gives too much discretion to states to be able to have control over this policy of dispersing the money. I mean, you want to obviously pressure the states. I'm not denying that at
Right,
all,
right,
but
right.
I think that the reason why they're in this pickle is because there was way too much power given to the states about dispersal of this money of federal programs.
Well, it goes back to the Senate. Is that going past through the Senate?
Yeah,
You will have to go through reconciliation.
you're right. You're right.
So, but reconciliation is coming up though. So that is something Congress. You're right. That is something Congress can do
Mm-hmm.
in reconciliation. It's something that they probably need to do
Mm-hmm.
in reconciliation. However, this is why we still need to pressure Biden
Oh yeah, for sure.
because he only extended for 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to just extend that for the rest of the year
Mm-hmm. I agree.
because we need time to make sure that money is there and whatever systems need to happen, the corrections really get put in place so people can get that money and
Facts.
we're not in the same position next year
I agree.
because
Yeah. Go ahead.
and and just politically next year is election year 2022. Do the
Mm-hmm.
Democrats I because these people don't really care about humanity, they really don't care about people, but they care about
Mm-hmm.
their own interests. Is it really good for the Democrats to have mass evictions in the election year? I don't think that's really good for them. So
No.
they need to fix it.
Yeah.
you know. Um, but I guess the thing is, and I guess this is a transition into our next topic, is just the messaging of the left altogether. I, it it's so difficult. It is difficult because there's a lot of people that just think people is lazy and they don't want people getting anything for free because they feel
Mm-hmm.
like they work hard, they struggle, they not in the best position. So why somebody that haven't been paying their rent getting a free ride?
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of that sentiment, and it just we have to be able to counter that message. I feel like the left in general haven't done a good job in appealing to people on a wide level. Yes, and I know they always say, well, if you poll people, yes, they agree with us. They agree with this policy. They agree with Medicare for all. They agree with free college. They agree with this. They agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it's inconsequential unless you can message it and have them actually act on it.
Right. I
That
agree.
does no good.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we have, and don't get me wrong, I'm for education, right? I have a graduate's degree, so I'm not one of those people that just like, oh, because there is an anti-intellectual movement going on out there, so I'm definitely
Mm-hmm.
don't want to sound like that. But sometimes you can make a conversation too intellectual, and you just focusing on such nuance that the average person might probably won't even understand what you're talking about,
Right.
and even more importantly, won't care
Right.
because people need immediate action. I feel like sometimes we go on these like real theory debates and utopia debates. I'm just like, okay, we need concrete action now. Unless you can give people tangibles at this moment, people not trying to hear what you're going to do in the future and how it could be. And you need to be able to deliver something now.
I agree.
So that's why Corey Bush was able to get it extended. That's something that was good, but we need more
Mm-hmm.
of that. We need
Mm-hmm.
more of that, and we need more of that not just at the political level, but locally. We've shared these philosophies. What actions are we taking? And I don't mean just protests or just marching. It comes down to more than that. Um, our economic messages. How we really going to get people engaged in our type of economics? how you really gonna get people talking about worker-owned co-ops if that's what you want? Unless we start doing it ourselves and showing that it's possible.
Hmm.
Like because the let's be honest, the odds are stacked against us. You got organizations like Chamber of Commerce, big money corporations.
Yeah.
They have politicians in their pockets, both parties.
They on
So
media.
media is definitely not on our side. So the
Hmm.
only way to do it is grassroots, and grassroots actually showing them that it could work.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it really need to be a focus on working on co-ops or different types of business structures. It doesn't have to be a co-op, but maybe a corporation where workers get a seat on the board. Something. There's plenty. I think Elizabeth Warren had that idea right there. There's plenty of different ways you can do where plenty different things you can do to get workers to make workers' lives better.
Hmm.
But it need to be demonstrated that it is possible.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
our our de-
Um.
our debate is too niche. I feel like.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think the even like I mean, granted, it's a CEO. But I remember that guy in Seattle who took a pay cut.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
To make sure his employees get 70%,
Uh-huh.
$70,000 a year or whatever,
Yep.
everybody.
That
So
was
as a
the
minimum,
minimum wage. Yeah.
right? And so I think that's one thing is to keep like highlighting stories like that because the left doesn't do that. Like, if you ever notice, like we don't really highlight stories of like actual like happy workers that are getting things that they wanted.
Hmm.
That's one thing. And I think that comes down to like, and the other thing too you mentioned was like actually like implementing stuff and showing the value in the things that what you're doing. I think that's something that the left for some reason doesn't. Maybe because we're not in these position elected offices, and that's why it's better to start at a lower level and work your way up because you're showing people what the value of these things are versus like aiming for the stars and getting shot down each time. And then the stars you're aiming for are bodies that you can't really like influence like that. Like, why are you running for governor, senator or Congress if you're a left? Like, if you're like a left and you see this body of these bodies that aren't at all like working towards anything. You have like a strong, loud, vocal, progressive base in the House, and they can't get anything passed because that's the way the House is. So why not go on a local level, show governance and leadership there, and do stuff? So that's one thing. The
Hmm.
other thing too, and you talk about like online debates and so forth. I think a big problem with the left is that their arguments aren't showing aren't the arguments or the discussion points that we're having. We're talking to everything we're saying is an
To
argument
each
against a
other.
moderate or a centrist. No, no, not
Hmm.
even as a moderate to a
Okay.
centrist
Right.
uh
Right. Right. Right.
person that's like at the same level as we are. Why are we talking to them? You know what I mean? Who cares about them? Like, you're not trying to convince them. They are fixing their ways. There are
Hmm.
people that don't give a fuck about these excuse my language, don't care about these language this stuff at all that you're talking about, and instead
Hmm.
like actually living their lives and doing stuff. Talk to them. Make it the pitch to them. Try to figure out the language to them that works for them because if you're having a debate with you can sit on Twitter or sit in message boards and talk for hours to a centrist or a moderate that isn't at all going to be moved. But at the end of the day, nothing's happening. So, like you said earlier, it's a lot of like getting into people's faces and actually talking to them and starting at grassroots and actually doing stuff yourself instead of spending time up there. But I would everything to me, everything about everything is just being at the base level and talking to people and getting to know people and learning the language that accommodates them because you're not going to win a money war. You're not going to win having arguments with people, and you're not going to argue fighting yourselves.
Right.
And you get to start doing stuff that even if it's not even like you're in governance, but if you're like I said, starting a co-op and having people that work for a co-op and having people there, they're like, yeah, this works. I'm making a good salary and I have ownership in this entity. So yeah, I think this works and I like this. And they tell their friends about it, and their friend wants to work for that co-op and so forth. That's how it all kind of like snowballs and stuff.
Right.
You got to start doing stuff on the ground level. I don't care about having an argument with somebody that isn't going to be moved, or again, like
Right.
I said before, aiming for the stars and trying to like get a major high profile seat when you really need to be like sitting in your community and working in your community to make sure people know who the fuck you are. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So that's how I feel. But
Right.
I think you're
And
saying similar, but yeah.
and this Nina Turner situation is
Hmm.
almost like the Bernie situation on a smaller level. People on the left are losing their freaking minds right now about Nina Turner's defeat, and it was very disappointing.
Hmm.
I was hoping that she would win. I thought she had a pretty good chance of winning, but I wasn't completely shocked that she lost. I was kind of surprised by the margin.
The margin shocked me too. Yeah.
Yeah, thought I thought it'd be a little bit closer. I
Hmm.
thought she'd lose. It would be about by maybe 2 points or so,
Hmm.
within 2 points. But my
Hey guys.
daily daily appearance by
What's up,
Remy the
buddy?
cat. But yeah, the margin of the defeat was kind of disappointing,
Hmm.
to be honest. And I don't know, just on off year elections, the turnout is usually low.
Right.
There's so much structural stuff that we got to do. Political education, for one, you know, but you just can't say, okay, I want to educate you on politics. There's got to be work put on before that to
Yeah.
even get people interested. You have to identify issues in the community people care about, and then go that way to educate them. But back to Nina Turner. So people, like I said, it's disappointing, but the reaction from the left is just crazy by a lot of people. Um, this this shouldn't have been a huge surprise that she lost, with all the money that came through,
Hmm.
with all the propaganda that came through. It was going to be hard for her to win because there were just so many people lined up against her. You had Clyburn, you had
The
the
Clintons. Yeah.
Clintons, you had the Congressional Black
Black
Caucus
Caucus.
as a
Yep.
line up against her. Um, they used the Biden comments, and with ads, I think most of us knew what Nina Turner meant, and I believe the majority of people there probably would have agreed with her, but you can manipulate it in a way like she wanted Trump to win, just
Hmm.
by highlighting those comments.
Hmm.
Um, but that's what I mean by education, though. Um, what she said about Biden was totally right. It was completely right. But there's a lot of older black people that likes Biden, you
Hmm.
know, and that's the problem. There's a lot of older black people where their politics is don't line up with younger black people, but younger black
Hmm.
people don't show up to vote, and that, I mean, it's just not a black people thing. You see that on the white progressive side as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's what it is, and the hope is eventually, once we come of age and this planet hopefully is not destroyed yet, um, that these changes can happen. But it sometimes we got to acknowledge this: when people get older, sometimes their politics do change because they get, I don't know.
I I
I
want to
don't know.
I want to push back a little bit on that. I remember I sent you that article, and it's been popular on the internet now about like who writes Black culture.
Right.
By Bertrand Cooper. It's on
Yep. Yep.
Current Affairs. It's a really good article.
It is.
If you haven't read that yet, it's really provocative and just it kind of it kind of ties into this in this way, and I'll explain it. Um, the thesis of the article was pretty much that there's a class of like Black people that controls like our what we portray as media and music and comedy well, yeah, music in terms of not the rappers itself but like the people around music or
Hmm.
movies and so forth, TV shows.
Yep.
And it's pretty much like a high achieving educational background, middle class, affluent, and so forth.
Hmm.
And that's just the way that it is, and it's just been like that. Same thing is true on the white media as well, honestly. But it's just that with Black media, uh, they're getting carte blanche access to talk about poverty, even though they've not experienced poverty themselves, and thus like influence like the way people think about like poverty and poor people and so forth. I bring that up because the same thing is true in politics. The same exact thing in the black community is true in politics. There's the elite black political class that frames everything, shapes everything, tells you who to vote for, and so forth. And they're not just like, I know you said that you get conservative when you're older, but they're not just older. They're people our age, people that are younger, that are being trained to be a part of this elite black political class. I remember when I was in college, a young lady was from New Jersey, and she was going crazy about how great Cory Booker was in Newark, and how he's done things for the schools and so forth, even though he sold out the schools, charter schools, and so forth. But the point I'm getting at really is that it isn't just like older black people. It's just I guess it comes with like money and so forth, but it's more so like there's this black political elite class that is telling us like this is it, this is who you need to vote for, and what progressives need to do is first and foremost like kind of like point that out a little bit more. That's one, but also two, like start like getting into the black these areas where you can talk to people and cut them out and start talking to these people directly instead of like letting them kind of like control the conversation and so forth, because these people are gonna age and they're gonna be like Biden's siders or whoever the future Biden is and so forth. They're voting for Biden now at 25 and 35 and 45 and so forth. When they're 65, 75, they're gonna still be voting for people like that because that's who they've been trained to think like, and that's who's been cut through there. So what I think progressives need to do is start talking to get into those places, but also start targeting like people that are working class and poor. And start again, like you said before, making material differences in people's lives, showing that this thing works, showing that this is going to help you, showing that like, yeah, we're out here, we see what's going on with the police, we're going to try to like we're going to go ahead and and target that and make sure that we have better law enforcement so that you don't feel like you're in prison for being poor. We're gonna like work. We're gonna be vocal at your school board to make sure that your kids are being educated properly and getting the resources they need and so forth. I think that that's what a lot of progressives, because a lot of progressives honestly come from an elite background themselves, are missing out at, and they gotta stop. That's why I said earlier, you gotta stop talking to them who are your peers but have ideological differences, and start talking to people that you're saying you're supposed to be helping, and start working with people that you said you want to be helping, and start doing stuff like that. That's how I feel about it, man. You can't be you got to stop like talking to your peers that have a difference of opinions, and stop aiming for the stars and start, like we said before, working on the grassroots and start like really talking to people and getting to know people and learning their language so they can like help they can you can help them. um
Right.
that's the thing that makes a difference. People want to see impact. So yeah, that's just how I feel. Like that's why I push back a little bit against that. I don't think it's just necessarily you getting older. It's just more so like uh
Right. And I
pe-
think we basically have the same opinion for the most part. What I meant by getting older is it is like from what I'm seeing, it's a lot of older black people that really in those politics. Now with the young, yes, there's the fraternities, there is a black elite amongst the young too, but that's not particularly what I'm talking about. It's mainly being in some of these poorer neighborhoods that
mhm,
I talk to the people there,
mhm,
and it's not that at all. Their politics is, first of all, they kind of completely off of politics,
mhm.
completely, completely.
Oh, for
And
sure.
those
Yeah,
that
yeah,
are talking about it, they are going in the opposite direction a lot of
mhm,
times of what progressive politics is
yeah,
want to do, especially on the economic front.
yeah. That's very true.
Especially on economics. Now
That's
they
true.
all support like police reform and stuff like that, but when it comes to economics, especially amongst younger black men, that's who I'm
Cold
specifically
capitalists.
talking about.
They are cold capitalists. Cold.
Right. So that's what I'm specifically talking about because there's a
Yeah,
lot of people I'm talking to right now. Um, yeah, they are completely going the opposite direction.
yeah,
The Democratic Party really have a problem with younger black men,
yeah. I agree.
and a lot of it is their own doing. Because when they talk about black votes, they usually highlight, the black women vote,
Mhm.
which is cool, but a lot of black men are discontent because a lot of the policies that both parties have supported basically have hurt black men and women, but especially black men.
Mhm.
So my fear is this: we talking about economics, we talking about working on co-ops, actually doing community building, and they talking about economics in the other direction right now. They
Mhm.
talking about yes, let's get businesses, but a lot of it is going into the personal responsibility type of talk. And I think black people of all class structures are starting to talk that now more than ever. I mean, it's always been there, but it's really becoming popular right now. Is that pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality?
Yep.
And yes, and I think what we need to do is acknowledge that, like, yes, of course you have personal responsibility. Everybody have personal responsibility, of course, but that doesn't neglect the systematic barriers that we face as a people. And yes, you can be as personal responsible as as you can. I mean,
Mhm.
Philando Castillo was very responsible. He had a job. He had a steady job. He was a licensed gun owner. Did everything he was supposed to do, but still got shot dead by a police officer.
In front
Right?
of his car, in front of his girlfriend and kid.
Right. So, w- how do you explain that when he was personally responsible?
Mhm.
Like that's what I mean by systems. Like a lot of black people professional environments can tell you, okay, I made it to a corporation, I'm getting paid a decent salary. Now you got some black people there that just love it in the cell, but you have others just like, yeah, I'm here, I like the money I'm making, but I don't feel comfortable.
Mhm.
I see the racism, I see the systematic racism, I see what they do. And again, systems. You see how it is in some of these the school system,
Mhm.
how the funding issue, like the way classes being taught, structures from the beginning, from kindergarten on.
Yep.
There's a lot of structural issues that we need to tackle. Yes, be personally responsible, but you giving the system a pass as well.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. You have to, yeah. And I think a thing that needs to happen is that there needs to be explained, like you're saying, like you need to explain like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you need to explain, like, yeah, uh, there's a reason why you're not getting this like housing loan, for
Hmm.
instance, or your home, or you're getting like a marked up housing loan percentage than you thought you would get with your credit score and so forth. There's
Right.
things like that, or you're not being shown houses in a certain neighborhood, or you're not
Hmm.
getting even in a basic level, you're not getting a good loan for your car on a good percentage, just stuff like that. You
Right.
need to explain these things, and it's not just a thing of just like, yeah, personal responsibility. That's not in your hands, so you're not personally responsible. You can save up as much as you want and have as much capital as you want, but if they're playing those games with you, that ain't no personal
Mm,
responsibility stuff. That's like a systemized problem. And uh, um, if that's what black progressives need to do. Like we need to go out in these communities and start saying these things about like
right.
these things, or better yet, when you're hearing stories of what people are going through, start tying these together.
Yeah.
Start saying that this is happening because of this, not just like it's messed up or so forth. Because like you're saying before,
Yeah.
people are so keen on this personal responsibility stuff.
Right. And I have to get on out of here in a second, but it's sad because it's a lot of charlatans taking advantage of
Yeah,
poorer
yeah.
black people
Hmm.
that want better and feeding them misinformation.
Hmm.
There's a lot of that going on where they just saying, well, you just do this, you're going to be rich. And it's
Yeah,
like, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Not saying you can't, and don't get me wrong, you can make it out of your situation. You definitely can, but we got to be real.
the,
It's
the
more
odds is
complicated.
low.
Yeah, it's more complicated than people making out to seem.
Yeah,
But you can definitely make it out. I mean, there's definitely can. So we have to acknowledge that you know because I do I do kind of agree with the point that we shouldn't tell people that, you can't get out of your situation, or make it seem like, even if you don't tell them that, make it seem so dim that it's almost impossible for you to progress in life. We do have to be careful with that messaging as well, but we do need to tell them the reality situations, and what our plan to get out of it, basically. Like that's what we need to be, and it have to be on black side anyway. It have to be more than just, we just going to wait until the government give us reparations, even though we need to have reparations. Definitely, that's no question about it. But we need a plan in the meantime
Hmm.
before we can get that, and even before we get reparations, we're going to need some type of more. We're going to need some type of political power,
Word.
real political power. I'm not talking about the CBC, in order for that to happen.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, that's just like I said before. Like start, you got to start. You can't just build a house by starting
Hmm.
with the roof. You know, that's
Yep.
what we tend to do in black politicians. You got to
Yep.
start building your foundation and start building upwards.
One more thing to progressives, because there's a debate happening. I mean, like I said, our debates is so niche, and it seemed like nobody is really can bridge the gap. And you have people talking about, well, universal programs, and I just want to explain them again. I said this in the past. The reason why some black people are kind of hesitant with universal programs, even though I support them, but need to be some type of legislation in it, some type of where we don't get overlooked. Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the universal programs in the past, we was the last to get it, or we didn't get
Mm-hmm.
it at all, or we didn't get what we were supposed to get.
Yep.
So for my progressive friends that don't understand why some black people are kind of like whatever with universal programs, that is the reason. I mean, you could go back to the GI Bill. I mean, you can go after you. I mean, I give this example. I give this example all the time with Medicare for all. We marketing that wrong, because Medicare for all, I support it. It needs to happen. It's ridiculous we don't have it right now. But if Medicare for all is passed, that's not going to curve the race disparities amongst black patients, because that have to do with providers and
Mm-hmm.
the way providers look at black people. I mean, there were studies done at them that providers actually treat black patients different. They already have something in their head that black patients are more difficult, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't solve that problem. Even black patients that have insurance, so yeah, that's why it does have to have some type of race component in it. Is not just strictly class. Class is big. It's a class and race is hand in hand. Like it's not just race. It's not just class. It both of these issues need to be tackled, and it's like too many people. It's like it's one and the other.
Yeah, they all they go together to the point where you should mention it and it should always be in your thinking, but it's also like not like for class and race. It's not also like if you're doing one thing, the other should follow. So if you're uplifting black people, class is going to always go up. If you're uplifting poor people, black people are going to go up and so forth. So I think that that's the way I tend to try to
Fred
frame
Ham
things.
Hampton figured that out.
Yeah, he figured it out and they took him out. So
Yep.
so yeah, man, like it go together, and I think that even like you know you see a story and stuff and how like people are like, well, I'm not a communist, but I like that you're giving my kids free breakfast. Yeah. Again, going back to what we said earlier, tangible. I can feel what this is benefits.
Tangible.
That's the way it
Hmm.
works. I can feel the impact in this. I can see it. I can eat it. I can taste it. You know, I can smell it.
More of that. Just talking is not going to get it done.
No, it's not. It's not at
And
all.
before people ask, you're like, "Well, we talking now," but yeah, I'm also in the community as
Well,
well.
my man's working, so he's a
So
worker.
yeah, so I'm also in the community as
Yeah,
well. So like,
I'm trying to be like you. I'm trying to be like you when I grow up. So
yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, but like, yeah, action, tangibles. We need to find a way to give people tangible. I'm just
word,
leave it at that.
word, definitely.
It's been a great show.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so make sure you subscribe, share.
Excuse me.
Peace out.
All right, y'all. Take care.